A single hug can influence how a person remembers you for a surprisingly long time, not because of anything mystical, but because of how the human brain processes touch, timing, and emotional safety. When two people come into close physical proximity, something immediate happens beneath conscious thought. The nervous system begins scanning for cues. Is this person safe, calm, confident, rushed, or uncertain? And the interesting part is that all of this happens before a single word becomes meaningful. Most people assume attraction or impression is built through conversation, but in reality, the body speaks first and the mind follows later. This is why physical interaction, especially something as simple as a hug, carries more psychological weight than most people realize. A hug is not just a greeting or a farewell gesture. It is a moment where two nervous systems briefly interact. And in that interaction, impressions are formed quickly and silently. The brain does not store these moments as mechanical actions. It stores them as emotional experiences. Comfort, tension, safety, awkwardness, warmth, or distance. That is why two identical hugs can create completely different memories depending on how they are delivered. The first mistake most people make is believing that the hug starts when the arms make contact. In reality, the experience begins much earlier, the moment someone sees you approaching. At that stage, the body is already observing everything. Your walking speed, your posture, your facial expression, your level of calmness or hesitation. All of these details form a silent message. If someone approaches with rushed energy, uncertainty, or nervous movements, the other person's subconscious picks up on that immediately. Even before contact, the impression of instability or discomfort may already be forming. But when someone approaches slowly, with steady movement, relaxed shoulders, and calm eye contact, a very different signal is sent. It communicates control, presence, and emotional stability without any words being spoken. This is important because human beings are constantly evaluating emotional safety in social interactions, especially in physical proximity. The nervous system is designed to detect subtle cues long before conscious thinking begins. So in a way, the approach becomes the first sentence of the interaction. It sets the emotional tone before anything physical happens. Then comes something even more subtle but extremely influential: timing. Most people rush into a hug immediately, closing the distance without any pause. But that small space of time just before contact plays a much bigger role than most realize. When there is a brief moment of stillness, when two people are close enough to feel each other's presence but not yet touching, the brain enters a state of anticipation. And anticipation is a powerful psychological trigger. It activates reward pathways in the brain associated with dopamine, which is the same chemical involved in excitement, curiosity, and emotional engagement. That tiny pause changes the quality of the moment. Instead of it being automatic and unnoticed, it becomes slightly more emotionally charged. Even if neither person consciously analyzes it, the nervous system registers that something intentional is happening, rather than something rushed or accidental. That difference alone can shift how the entire interaction is experienced. When the actual hug happens, pressure becomes the silent language of communication. Touch is not just physical contact. It is interpreted by the brain as information. If the pressure is too light, it can feel disconnected, as if the person is not fully present. It gives an impression of hesitation or emotional distance. On the other hand, if the pressure is too strong, it can create discomfort, making the body tense up in response. The ideal balance is firm but relaxed, a level of pressure that communicates presence and confidence without crossing into forcefulness. At this level, the body feels held but not restricted, which creates a sense of ease rather than resistance. Hand placement also plays a role in how touch is interpreted. Open, relaxed contact on the upper back tends to communicate warmth and respect. A slightly deeper placement on the mid-back often signals familiarity and comfort. What matters most is not a technique, but the quality of intention behind the contact. Hesitant touch where only fingertips are used or where contact feels incomplete can unconsciously signal uncertainty or lack of presence. Meanwhile, full and open contact tends to feel more grounded and stable. The human nervous system reads these differences instantly, even if the conscious mind does not. Another often overlooked element is breathing. During close physical proximity, breathing patterns naturally become noticeable. When one person is calm and breathing slowly, it can influence the other person's physiological state. There is a natural tendency for human nervous systems to synchronize in close, calm interactions. This phenomenon, sometimes referred to as physiological or respiratory synchrony, means that one person's steady breathing can encourage relaxation in the other person. When the body relaxes, emotional defenses tend to soften slightly, and the experience becomes more comfortable and grounded. This is not about control or manipulation. It is about how the human body naturally responds to calmness and stability. In close contact, the nervous system is constantly evaluating whether it can relax or whether it needs to stay alert. Calm breathing signals safety. Fast or irregular breathing can signal tension. And because humans are highly sensitive to emotional states in close proximity, these signals are absorbed without conscious awareness. Then comes one of the most important yet most ignored parts of the entire interaction: the ending of the hug. Most people focus on how to enter a hug but completely overlook how they exit it. However, the way separation happens often leaves the strongest impression. If the hug ends abruptly, with immediate physical and visual disengagement, the emotional moment collapses instantly. The brain registers it as incomplete or disconnected. But if the separation happens gradually, with a slight pause, gentle release, and a moment of eye contact, the emotional experience lingers longer. That brief moment of eye contact after physical closeness is especially significant because it re-engages emotional awareness right after physical connection. Even a couple of seconds of calm, steady eye contact can reinforce the emotional tone of the interaction. It signals acknowledgement, presence, and closure in a way that feels natural rather than rushed. From a psychological perspective, the brain does not store interactions as isolated physical events. It stores them as emotional patterns. The combination of approach, timing, pressure, breathing, and exit all merge into a single emotional memory. That memory is what remains after the moment is gone. It is not the hug itself that is remembered, but how the person felt during and after it. This is why some interactions feel forgettable, while others leave a lasting impression without any clear reason. It is not about intensity or exaggeration. It is about coherence. When body language, timing, and emotional presence all align naturally. When that alignment happens, the brain encodes the experience as meaningful. What most people fail to understand is that physical communication is not about performing gestures correctly. It is about emotional presence being expressed through the body. A hug, in this sense, is not a technique. It is a moment of human connection where two nervous systems briefly influence each other's emotional state. And when that moment is approached with calmness, awareness, and grounded presence, it naturally feels different. Not because of tricks or rules, but because humans are biologically sensitive to emotional stability. People remember how they felt around someone far more than what was said or done. In the end, a hug is simply one of the most direct forms of nonverbal communication we have. It can either feel mechanical and forgettable, or it can feel warm, safe, and emotionally meaningful. The difference is rarely about what you do with your arms. It is about the state you bring into the moment. And once you understand that, you stop thinking of physical interaction as something to perform and start seeing it as something to experience fully with awareness and presence.